You know what? We're givers here on the Rich Eisen Show. We're not just takers.
I think so.
So let's bring in Albert Breer before the radio audience joins, so we could give something to Albert, if you don't mind. Can we get Albert up here? There you are, Albert. You're there, Albert. You give us so much.
I'm being set up.
No, you're not being set up.
Albert,
not the way you think. Don't worry about it. You give us so much, Albert. We're going to give something to you. Okay, it's a scoop. I think you need to run this down. Use all of your outstanding reporting acumen to run this down. Put it up on the screen here. Kyler Murray is the franchise quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, okay? Albert? So that's your news. That's what they tweeted out yesterday.
There it is.
There it is.
Just like 4 years ago, right?
I guess.
5 years ago? Yeah.
There you go.
Josh is our guy, I think was the quote,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is something going on with them? Like they feel the need to tweet that out, or what do you?
It is a little weird, but I mean, like every indication I've gotten is that they're good, and like that Kyler, like really meshed well with Jonathan Gannon and with Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator. So I wonder if they're trolling us a little bit, because you'll remember. So there was that, right? And then I think it was 2 years ago where Eric Burkhart, Kyler's agent, on the first day of the combine dropped that statement, right?
Oh, that's right.
If you remember. So like this has sort of been a Cardinals thing over the last 5 years. So are they trolling us? I don't know.
Well,
it feels like they're trolling.
Oh, I'm glad that it's in support, because then the spirit of our montage our collage that we put out. There it is. Mike Del Tufo is our franchise audio executive. There he is.
Oh, I like it. Okay. I like it. See, Mike, does that affirmation make you feel good?
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel. I don't.
Back on the Rich Eisen Show here.
Maybe I'm actually interviewing for the job right now.
No, Albert. This is our audio executive, and you just stay in your lane. You're outstanding in your lane where you are. But I just want to make sure that everyone understands that these collages are all in support. They're not all to leave the door open for people. You know what I'm saying?
I also wanted to mention,
yes,
like that. I really appreciated your response to my Marvin Harrison tweet yesterday, and I was going to respond, but I was in the air.
Okay,
right, and then I wound up finding a piece of video where you guys were actually workshopping it.
Yes,
so on the air. I was wondering if, Rich, you'd be so kind, maybe you could give me your staff.
Yes.
To workshop.
Yes. Before I hand off the staff to you, let me just, recap.
Fantastic.
To recap the story that you put out there is that Marvin Harrison is not working out specifically for combine. No, so many of the kids these days are just training to run fast or jump high at the combine. He's not going to do the workouts at the combine or the pro day. He's getting ready for football this fall. And you said, I think that's a smart decision. I then responded by saying, then I perhaps something along the lines of it might help that he didn't play in December or January either. Yep. Mm-hmm. And you guys helped me workshop that. There it is. Maybe it will help that he had December and January off too, is what I said. There it is. There's the exchange. Now I hand it to you, Albert. My staff is yours.
What do you got?
Yeah, so I had a couple of different ideas here. One was a Michigan man would know what that feels like. Another one I was thinking was the only shame of all of this is that he won't be around next November for the reckoning. But that might be a little too direct, and I don't know. I want to keep this a little light and not be as direct and hit you between the eyes with it.
But you can't. I'm untouchable. I'm untouchable.
But that's the thing, yeah.
Right
and that's
now.
The thing is, that's the thing is, like, and I don't, and I.
You're
and there's no.
That's the beautiful thing.
I think Albert, just use facts. Use the facts to your advantage. In the 2 games against Michigan,
he had his days.
He had 12 catches for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that gets the point across.
Right, and that's when he was playing a defense that he said he hadn't really seen before, and he still succeeded.
Right, it was too easy for him. That's why he said that.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, did they help, Albert?
You mean like so? Yeah, I mean, I think it probably helped him get better for the NFL and help all those guys get.
No, did these guys help you?
Yeah.
We're talking.
Oh, I was gonna say it also helped some coaches get NFL jobs.
By the way, that's like one of those things that you give your customers. Like, hey, was my staff helpful today?
I will say this: you were very patient and you waited a lot of years, and now you've pounced, and I can't blame you. And I have to take my medicine, and that's where we're at right now. And at least for another, I'm doing the math in my head right now. I went to Ohio State, so I have to kind of take my time doing this. Another 9 months, right? And we'll see what happens.
Very good. Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show from the Combine. Your take on Ryan Poles' comments today is what, based on your reporting that you said the Bears wanted to have a plan coming out of the Combine about what they're going to do at quarterback. So you're the perfect person to ask about Poles' comments today and how you read them.
So I think Poles' comments reflect a general manager who wants all of his options laid out before him. And I don't think it behooves him to publicly say what they're going to do. In other words, if they say we're trading Justin Fields, well, now how do other teams look at that, right? Do offers for the first overall pick stop coming in? If he says, we're trading the first overall pick, well, then how does that affect that market? So I think what's best for him and what's best for the franchise right now is to have all of their options out in front of them with the knowledge in the back of their heads of what they're going to do. Now, they have done a ton of work on Caleb Williams, and they are far down the line. Now they have to meet with him this week, but I mean, they were in Los Angeles. They went out, they met with Cliff Kingsbury about their offensive coordinator job. They were out there to talk to Zach Robinson. They did background through the fall. I mean, they have an idea of what they think of Caleb Williams, and I think this week is about confirming it. But I still think the likelihood is that they stick at one and take him because, look, like he's a generational talent. Like he's a once every few years type of quarterback, and it gives them a chance to reset the rookie contract clock for your quarterback, which is invaluable. So I think this week's going to be about, again, like he said, information gathering and gathering what they could get for the number one overall pick and gathering what is possible for Justin Fields. And they've allowed a lot of that to happen to this point, naturally, having teams come to them rather than the other way around. But I mean, Ryan said it himself. Like, if we're trading Justin Fields, the fair thing to do is to trade him before free agency starts. It's what's fair for Justin. It's also what's best for them because there are going to be far fewer quarterback vacancies 4, 5, 6 weeks from now. So, with free agency just a couple of weeks away, I don't think there's any question that Justin has that Ryan Poles has it in his head. Like, this is probably what we're going to do, pending the last piece of the information gathering that we do this week.
What's your best guess as to what the markets are for the first overall pick and for Justin Fields?
Well, with the first overall pick, it sort of depends on how far down you're coming from, right? Like, so, Minnesota at 11 or Denver at 12 are going to have to pay more pick-wise than Washington would for flip-flopping their 1 and 2. But, I mean, this is seen as a very rich quarterback draft and a quarterback draft that's very strong at the top. So I think the teams that have the top 3 picks are all going to have strong markets for their picks. And I think there is a separation between Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels. So if the Bears were to auction the pick off, I think they could get a lot for it. I think more than 3 first-round picks, if you're talking about going outside the top 10 to 11 or 12. I think it'd be that sort of haul for him. Justin Fields, I think, because of the contractual situation, and again, none of this is Justin's fault. It's a weird circumstance where they had somebody else's first-round pick, and that team wound up being the worst team in the league. So it's not like he was the quarterback of the worst team in the league, and that's what put them in this situation. And they love him. They think you can win with him. But I think that they want to do right by Justin. I mean, this is a GM and Ryan Poles who took Justin into the draft room, took him into the war room 2 years ago when he first got there, and basically showed him the draft board and explained this is why we probably aren't taking a receiver in the second round, right? So he's going to be transparent the same way with Justin this time around. I think he's going to try to get him to the best place possible for Justin as well as for the Bears. And I think we're probably talking, and most ballpark I've got, people don't think they're going to be able to get a 1 for him, but a day 2 pick plus a day 3 pick which is affected, of course, by his contractual situation that he's only got 1 year left on his rookie deal, that the 5th-year option is really expensive if you decide to pick that up. So I think we're talking, again, a day 2 pick and a day 3 pick, whether that's a 2 and a 5 or a 3 and a 7, whatever it is, I think depends on how many teams wind up being in it, but I think it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Who's in it for Fields? You're here in Pittsburgh and Atlanta, and you're here in Raiders, all the
Atlanta's
usual suspects.
the one I have circled. Like I've heard that the owner really liked him 3 years ago. And I think, I think if you're Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, what going and getting Justin Fields does for you with a roster that's already pretty built out is he gives you a swing at getting your quarterback for the next 5 or 10 years, but not the sort of swing as if you took one 5th overall or 7th overall or 9th overall, right? In other words, they could trade for Justin Fields and still take a quarterback this year in the first round or next year or the year after. He gives you a shot at having a long-term answer at quarterback, but you're also not like handcuffed. So you can still take more shots at it as you go. So I think that's why for Atlanta, he makes sense. Now, Pittsburgh, I think, is possible. Mike Tomlin's got a lot of strong connections to the Ohio State program. They're going to be able to get good information on him. Arthur Smith did pass on him 3 years ago, though, right? So Arthur Smith's offense can work for him. Where does he think of him? Vegas would be another one, but Luke Getsy's there. So what does Luke Getsy think after working with him the last couple of years? Does he want to build an offense in Vegas the same way that he built one for him in Chicago? I think those would be the teams I'd start with. Again, like you go down the list of teams that have franchise quarterbacks or that took quarterbacks high the last couple of years, you get to a point where it's like, no more than a handful of teams probably get involved in this.
Well, I mean, if say you're a team like Washington or New England, no one's really even mentioning Washington as a Justin Fields location because everybody thinks they're just going to go and get the kid they want in the draft, not named Caleb Williams. But you could get Justin Fields now for, as you pointed out, a day 2 pick or 2, and add Marvin Harrison Jr. to the mix using that choice. Right. You could stay put, and then you get the best receiver that a lot of people think have come out of the draft in quite some time for Justin Fields, right? I mean, like that's the benefit of going to get Justin Fields now. That's how you could work it.
And I think it would work for Washington more than it would for New England, just because I think Washington's roster is a little bit more built out.
Right.
New England has so many needs, right? Like if you look at, and they've got needs at premium positions, Rich, like tackle, receiver, quarterback. It really is sort of a ground up rebuild. Whereas like Washington, you can start to look around their roster. And yes, they traded the defensive ends, but they have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. They drafted Emmanuel Forbes last year. At receiver, they've got Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. So Washington, I could see it a little bit more because you can get yourself to a place where you're like, okay, I could see where it would make sense for them because maybe they're a little bit closer, and adding a Marvin Harrison could put them over the top. The one thing about that is, though, San Francisco wasn't wild about Fields 3 years ago, and the new general manager there, the guy who's going to be making this pick, came from San Francisco. So I still think the likelihood would be the Commanders take either Daniels or May at 2.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. What is going on with the Broncos and Russell Wilson? And I'll just leave it at that.
I think it's over. Don't you?
Yeah, it sounds over, with Sean Payton also saying today that he said he saw a meme of somebody wearing a jersey of a bunch of names of the quarterbacks with crossed out names. He says, we just got to make sure the next one isn't crossed out.
Right.
And thus, the next one clearly doesn't refer to Russell Wilson, who goes on the I Am Athlete podcast and, tells Brandon Marshall essentially that the team did him dirty, but he still wants to stay and his house isn't sold. So that's why I ask you, like, what is going on with Russ?
But like sometimes I feel like everyone needs a fresh start. Doesn't this feel like one of those situations?
Well,
Rich?
but the Denver Broncos were supposed to be the fresh start for him.
And it's been 2 years, and now you have the history of the Nathaniel Hackett year. You have the history of how last year ended. You have the fight between the agent and the team that happened at the end of last year. There's just all of this baggage that Russell Wilson would carry into 2024, right? So if Russell Wilson goes, let's say Russell Wilson goes to Las Vegas, right, and plays for the Raiders. Well, if the Raiders start like 2-3 and he's got a few picks over the first 5 weeks, okay, good. You ride it out, right? That same scenario happens in Denver, and oh my God, are they looking to run him out of town? Because he's still chasing all of that history of the last couple of years, and things could go sour quicker because of the history there, right? So I think, a fresh start makes the most sense for everybody. It makes sense for Russell. I think it really makes sense for Sean Payton. I think this right here is the opportunity for Sean Payton to hit reset at quarterback and go forward and execute his own quarterback plan, which I think in the back of his head, he really wanted to do from the time he got to Denver at the beginning of 2023. And so I think the Broncos are going to be doing all of the work with the quarterbacks in the draft. I look at J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix as guys who stylistically actually make some sense, right? So could those guys be a consideration with the 12th overall pick? I think they'll talk to teams about trading up. Now, whether or not they can pull it off, I don't know. But I think that you're going to see, I think you're going to see a reset here. And I think that the reset's going to happen because Russell Wilson could use a fresh start. There's the contractual issue that you'd have to work around to make it to even think about having him back. And this is maybe the one shot that Sean Payton has in Denver at hitting the reset button. I can't see him passing that up.
I don't know, though. I mean, I read somewhere that J.J. McCarthy's lanky and is way back of the quarterback group. Albert, where did I read that? Oh, that's right. An unnamed executive.
Oh, you think
No. I'm not saying you. No, I'm saying somebody that you're quoting is misreading the situation.
But I had the other one, too. If you look, there's another quote.
No, I'm not saying you're doing him dirty. I didn't mean that. No, I'm just saying somebody's doing him dirty. I don't.
Yeah. No, there's there's a huge amount of split opinion on J.J. McCarthy. What I've found, at least.
Yeah.
Like I think so. There's a couple problems. Number one, it's can he carry a team because he wasn't asked to at Michigan. Now that doesn't mean he can't, but you're projecting that a little bit. And if you go back and you look at the history of it, right, with some of the young guys in the league now, Josh Allen carried Wyoming, Patrick Mahomes carried Texas Tech. Lamar Jackson carried Louisville. Joe Burrow didn't have to carry LSU, but with an all-star team around him, he broke every record, not just at LSU, but every record in the SEC, right? So you haven't seen that. There's also the question about his build. And, how much weight can he put on? How tall is he? I think it's going to be big for him this week to get in front of these guys. So these guys can kind of eye him up and see, okay, can he put on more weight? How big can we project him to get? So those are all questions. What I would say, and I say this like 100% genuine, like this has nothing to do with our rivalry.
Of course.
He is competitive as hell. His makeup is great. He's a winner. He's got a loose wrist. He's got a good arm. He's a really good athlete, and he's a loose athlete. I mean, there's a lot to like there. It's can you wrap your head around the idea that he's lighter than you'd like, he may be a little shorter than you'd like, and he hasn't been asked to carry a team at the college level. That's what you have to reckon with.
Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you this question in a sports talk radio way. You can only choose one. Kirk Cousins is back with Minnesota. Justin Jefferson is back with Minnesota. They're both back with Minnesota. Neither's back with Minnesota. How do you see that?
Justin Jefferson is back with Minnesota. I could just tell you what the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, and the GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, think of him. They believe he is one of one, that there is not another receiver like him. He's still only 24, so whoever their long-term quarterback is can benefit from him. He's got 7 or 8 years maybe left in his prime. I think it's going to be tough to get a deal done because the cap going up means the numbers are going to go up, right? So are you talking about paying him what, say, Nick Bosa got from the Niners, and we're talking about getting like well into the 30s now. That's something that the Vikings are going to have to reckon with. But I think ultimately they will find a way to get something done. With Cousins, I'm a lot less certain because it's been made clear to Cousins people that they're not going to go down the road they did twice already, which is the fully guaranteed road. And so I think he's going to have value on the market. I think Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi want to bring him back, and that's the idea is to bring him back. How far are they willing to go financially to do it? And if they aren't willing to meet his number, is somebody else going to meet his number? And I think Kirk's a really good quarterback. I think Kirk is by far the best option out there for teams in the market. And I think for someone, maybe this is Atlanta, maybe this is Vegas, it's the teams we've talked about that have openings. Can he be Alex Smith in Kansas City for you? You know what I mean? If you got a new head coach, can he be the guy who can get you up to a competitive level right away and then buy you time to find the next guy? I think he can be. Again, pending what you think of his Achilles injury and the medicals and all of that. Like, I think he very much can be. So I think that's the model somebody would be looking for with Kirk Cousins, is what Alex Smith was for Andy Reid in Kansas City. And because of that, I sort of feel like somebody is going to go the extra mile to get him. And then maybe a month from now, we're talking about Minnesota trying to trade up to get a quarterback in the draft.
Brother, you're the best. Appreciate it.
And thanks for the workshop. I appreciate it. Thank all you guys for that.
You got to know that. Listen, we're here for you, Albert. We're here. There may be an I in Rich and Eisen, but I'm a team player. Listen, as shocked as I was to read it and then melancholy as I was to open up Peter King's retirement column, I was thrilled to see him suggest you and the MMQB first up as a suggestion for people to go to when he's no longer writing his Football Morning in America. He mentioned you and your column that you took the mantle from him and ran with. He mentioned you, and I was thrilled to see that. Well,
thank you. I appreciate that. I'd be remiss if I didn't say what an incredible person he is and what an incredible legacy he leaves. And you know him well too, Rich.
Yep.
It's so cliche to say, as good as this person was, as good as the guy was at his job, he was even better as a person. But it really applies. I mean, have you ever seen anything so unanimous on social media as what we saw yesterday?
Nope. And he deserved it.
Unanimous, and he deserved every word of it. And I'm so grateful for what he did for me. If anybody wants to read about that, like I did a story on him yesterday after the announcement, but yeah, congrats, Peter. I hope you get to kick your feet up and go to bed at 9:30 and not worry about having to stay up at 3 a.m. in Indianapolis anymore. You earned every bit of that. I love Peter, and I owe him a lot, as do a lot of people in our business.
Me too. +1. Thanks, Albert. See you in Indy.
All right, thanks, Rich.
You bet. That's Albert Breer here. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.